All right, last topic of conversation, Patrick, is to talk about, some of these reports, and we see them on the Twexperts all the time. Twitter experts, those are Twexperts, by the way, folks. If you've never heard of a Twexpert, you should go to x.com. You got a variety of Twexperts there. But the Twexperts, some people are calling for a 40% drop or more in the real estate bubble. There's reports coming out that Canada's in a housing bubble, which I find interesting. Patrick, what is your take on this? And then I will give you my take on this.
Well, I think we talk about housing bubble, and they've been talking about a housing bubble since forever. I mean, there's always a Canadian housing bubble, and I mean, when you look at the graphs and the things on paper, it's 8 times income and 10 times income, and interest rates are higher. It's got to deflate, but again, we look at what's happening just from a demand side versus a supply side. That keeps the bubble pretty inflated. I think that there are certainly some regions, some municipalities that are going to get hit. And but these blanket statements of Canada's going to get hammered and Canada's in 40%. And a lot of those predictions, by the way, are made by individuals who are observing Canada, who don't really understand what makes Canada tick, and they're from outside the country. That I see a lot of that as well, by the way. And so, will some regions get hit? Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it'll be 40%. Seems a little bit rich, but I'm not going to forecast any of it. I don't see it, but that's where I'm at.
I think what's interesting, Patrick, and we got this great chart. And by the way, in that particular Twexpert, and I have no idea who this person is, by the way, so I'm definitely unfairly characterizing this person. But in this case, the chart essentially, and this is a chart published by Toronto Star, by the way. Another expert for sure, another Twexpert, Toronto Star for sure. This is just pointing out essentially housing costs versus income. And again, Patrick, back to your point, it's comparing the US to Canada. And based on that chart, we're way too high. Therefore, it should come down. That's how they get to this 40% in terms of how they run their numbers. Now, what's interesting about this, Patrick, is we got some interesting data when it comes to essentially, like you said, what's happening in Canada with rents, right? You see rents constantly going up, still going up. And I think that a lot of for me anyways, I think the bottom, not the bottom, but you've already had for some markets, the market has come off quite a bit in terms of the highs from COVID. We've come down quite a bit in many markets. And I think there's definitely some price stability. Is it going to go down a little bit more? Yeah, it definitely could for sure. But I think that what's interesting is I think you're going to see a strong rebound once the interest rates. I know so many people that are just waiting in the wings for interest rates to stabilize and to stop going up. And they don't even have to go down very much, Patrick. They just have to stop going up. We only had our first rate pause in September, and I'm very curious to see what the government's going to do at the end of October, because I think if they pause again, I think that you're going to see some people coming back into the real estate market in a big, big way. And I certainly don't see a 40% drop. And that kind of statement in terms of again, we've always talked about it, making a Canadian statement on Canadian real estate prices, it just doesn't make any sense. It's like making a Canadian weather statement, like the weather in Canada is such and such. That doesn't make sense. Different weather patterns in different segments of the different regions. Same with real estate.
100%.
That's it? That's all you're going to say?
Well, no, I think you've covered it all. The only thing that I would add to this is that when we look at, rental, and you're saying rents are coming, down a little bit in some areas, for the investors, always consider the region, the town that you're investing in, the city you're investing in, and ask yourself, where are the jobs? Where are the jobs? Because, when you start to see unemployment start to come up, people will go to where the jobs are. So when you look at an economy, a municipality, a city, you go, what's driving that city? If you look at Hamilton as an example, people are very bullish on Hamilton, and you look at the diversity of the economy, and so there's a reason to be. You look at the diversity and what they're doing in terms of their infrastructure growth, like their transit system. So you look at a city like Hamilton, and you can say, hey, this looks pretty good. And when you look at the downside, it's not as strong as some of the smaller cities or other cities, which are we call 1 or 2 horse towns, where if one of those industries gets hit, by a recession and there is a downturn, then you start to see that unemployment and people are not working. That's problematic. So we pound this, JG. Look at the region, look at the city you're investing in. Are there jobs? Is there population growth? Is there a rising income? These are all things that we look at for the strength of any given region that we're in.
And if you want an incredibly fast way to do this, that's going to save you a ton of time and give you the information at your fingertips in real time on one screen from one source, go to di-vault.com and come and check out that platform. It is changing the way real estate investors are doing real estate because it makes it so much easier, so much faster, and makes you more efficient, more effective. And it's incredible. So check that out. And I want to leave everyone on one last chart, Patrick, because I think this is often the thing that nobody talks about, which is, there's so many points about debt levels, and there's so many points about house prices and so on and so forth. But the fact is this, and this is a great chart, is this is the dollars of assets for every dollar of debt. And you can see that this chart is constantly climbing, even with the pullback in prices in Canada. And you can see that on this chart too. Look at 2022, how it's come down from the tops there. The point still remains, Patrick. There's still a ton of wealth in the system, and that wealth will continue to work.
And it's interesting times, isn't it? Because we often look at the debt side, we don't look at the equity side of the equation. That's just the case. One thing we didn't talk about was there is an uptick in insolvencies in business. Now, I just happen to have friends over who've got some real big challenges with their business, but the business is mature and they're sitting down with the bank, and the bank's looking at it going, you've got a ton of equity. So in spite of the fact that they are faced with some really big challenges business-wise for all sorts of reasons, the point of that is that what they have got is a lot of equity on the other side of the equation. So the bank is saying, your decision is really, do you want to keep eating away at this equity that you have, or what do you want to do? Like, these are the decisions that are being made. So in terms of a lot of the insolvencies that we're seeing in business, there is the other side of that equation, which is a lot of these business owners, especially those that have been around for a while, they've got a lot of equity. Now, in the just overall general population, this chart shines a big light on the net worth of people when you look at the equity side of the equation.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting. It's all a balance. That's what it's all about, and fascinating to see where this is going to go. And the journey continues. Excited to see what October 2023 is going to bring.
Exciting times.
If you like what you learned here, go to the description below and subscribe for our free Insiders newsletter, where you can also stay up to date for our upcoming events and our courses.
If you want to see more stuff like this, click here. If you want to see the entire show, click there.